Welcome back. If you're new to the channel, this is my 1959 Ford Galaxie that sat in a barn for more than 30 years, including sitting in it through a flood where it got completely submerged. We're in the process of getting it back on the road. If you want to check out the other videos, I'll link them somewhere in this screen. Last episode, though, left off with not knowing exactly what I was going to be working on. Decided that since we're here, everything's out of the way, we're going to start working on this front end. So, what all is that going to entail? Well, pull the wheels and tires off. We're going to check wheel bearings, ball joints, all of that stuff. Make sure there's no excess wear in any of that or play. And then we're going to start putting new stuff in. I got new brake pads, I got new wheel cylinders, new soft lines. So actually new parts, unlike last time when it was due. It happens. And then on top of that, it's parts that you can actually see, kind of. We're going to be replacing the shocks. And Adam's going to be coming here, so I'm actually going to have help doing this, which will be great. And then we're just going to see how far we get. It could be that takes plenty of time. I don't know what needs replaced in here, so it could be something super simple, and I actually have all the parts, or it's going to be a nightmare, and there's a giant list of parts that I need to order. At the very least, we'll know by, you'll know in a few minutes. I'll know, hopefully, in a few days when I get all this done. So, that's the plan for this episode. Like I said, Adam's coming over, so I'll have some help. So, let's get started tearing it apart. Alright, so, we got the brake drum off. Drum looks okay. It could probably be resurfaced, but I think all things considered, it'll probably be fine. There's a lot of fluid that leaked out, so you can see right here. It's a good thing we got wheel cylinders, because the seals on these are shot. So we're going to start tearing this down. We're going to check out all the bearings. And then before we put it all back together, definitely going to repack those and kind of just go from there. after a little bit of screwing around and everything, we actually did finally get the front brakes off. The bearings actually look pretty good. Bearings and races seem all right. The seals are definitely not. And as we guessed, the wheel cylinders are junk. But that kind of is what it is. The soft lines were also pretty well closed off and starting to rot. So it's a good thing we got those as well. Hard lines actually look all right. So that's not a huge deal because we can get to it pretty easy. But not having to screw with all that, I am 100% for it. So looks like we're good there. Definitely flush those out, but shouldn't be too big of a deal. The other good news is the spindles actually look pretty good. Spindles look all right. Drums look all right. Not fantastic, but good enough for this. It's not like this is going to be, doing a bunch of crazy high-speed stopping because that would require it to actually get to high speed. I don't know if it's actually going to do that. Also, it's drum brakes. It's going to take like 3 miles for this giant thing to slow down anyways. Like I said, I already have pads and wheel cylinders and hoses, so now it's just a matter of getting the springs and cleaning up the adjusters so that, they actually adjust. That'd be kind of nice. In the meantime, what we're going to do is we're going to start tearing into the shocks. So that's our next thing, and, just keep working forward. Well, I'm over here at our painted front end and got some good news and some bad news. It's actually not all bad news. It's shocking. So the good news is that the bushings can't be in bad shape if there aren't any. Yeah, there's supposed to be rubber in there, and there's none. The bad news is where it keeps on getting bad, which is there's supposed to be rubber in between here and here. The other bad news is this is part of the control arm, and there's a crack in it. So, I seriously doubt I'm going to be able to get a new control arm, which means we're probably going to have to repair this one, which means this whole front end needs to come apart. These bushings, not in good shape, but they are actually there. These bushings, and this one's kind of the same way. Yeah, there are none. I don't know where they went. They pulled an Elvis. They left the building. Went the way of the buffalo. So, we are going to have to tear this all apart. Well, anyone who's ever had a major project kind of knows how this is, where sometimes you're working on something that looks fine at a cursory glance, and then the more you dig into it, the more you just end up with a can of worms. So, we went over the bearings, we went over the bushings. Good news is that included in like the mini boxes of parts, were actually some bushings. Downside is there's only 3. Um, I don't know why. So I'm probably just going to order a set of 4. Worst case, I have extras. And from certain places, they're actually not that expensive, which is great. This right here is kind of one of the reasons when you do buy a project car, you really got to be careful about knowing what you're getting, or at least doing enough research to know what you could be getting into and not paying too much because you really want a car. So if you do get your own project car, give it a once over, but also don't get too enamored with it that you overpay. That's something that probably happens way too much, and then the project stalls or is sold or whatever. So far, the good news is we haven't gotten hit with anything crazy expensive. Um, at least as far as this is concerned. I know one trim piece there are a couple trim pieces that are going to be a disaster, but that actually gives me a little bit of creativity to do what I want and, kind of do what I'm good at, which is designing things. Well, in an effort to actually complete one entire part, right now what we're doing is working on the brake lines for the axle. We were able to get the original distribution block for the rear axle cleaned up and clean, and you can actually see through it now. That's always a plus. And now we're going to work on the rear line. Thankfully, I do have one line. I have no idea where the other side went. It wasn't on the car. It's not with the parts. I really have no idea. But we do have this one, which is a really good template for what we need to match. So we're going to recreate this, and hopefully, at least at the time of filming, we haven't gotten to the rear wheel cylinders. But when we replace those, we'll have brand new lines ready to bolt back up, and the parts that come in for the front, we can throw those on, and we can actually finish up the entire brake system, which would be kind of nice to check one major thing off the list. So I don't know exactly how long this actually is. We're going to go a little bit long, and then cut it off, so that way we only have one stick to deal with, instead of, say half a roll. So I've never used one of these before. This is just a cheap one off of the Jungle website. I used it when I did the front to back brake line section. Once I was able to get in a fairly straight line, and it worked really well. And on little sections, it actually works really amazing at getting it nice and straight and getting all the little weird bumps and stuff out of it. So, never thought they were really worth it before, but actually they kind of get my seal of approval for the cheap ones. I'm sure the expensive ones are really nice, but oof. After some quick fitting on the car, this brake line is done. This is the rear axle brake line for the passenger side. It's not connected because we haven't put new wheel cylinders in yet. That's going to happen soon. I still have to do the driver's side. There's no template for it, so it's just going to be a lot more fiddly, but it's a lot shorter, so hopefully it won't take too long. But that's what we're going to work on next. Well, this might be a dumb idea. I don't know. We're about to find out. But I've got one of these gear ties, one of the super flexible gear ties, and rather than crawl underneath here 9 billion times, I'm going to try and use this as a template, and then that will give me the shape that I need to match. Over and up again. Well, we've got at least that part of it, so we will actually probably just go ahead and bend part of this, and then we'll bolt in that distribution piece. That'll cap off here. We'll just need to cap the two ends, and we'll be on our way. So we have a template, and this is what we need to bend. Fitting is a little bit past here, and then the fitting needs to end here. So let's use it as a template and get started. Well, if this fits half as good as that did, we might actually be onto something here. So let's go test it out. I'll be back. Well, that actually worked out, hopefully, really well. I'm about to go test it, so I'll throw it up there, see how it fits, and then remember to bring a marker, and mark the end where I need to flare it. If it fits, hopefully it doesn't need too much tweaking, and then that might actually have been way easier than I thought it was going to be. Biggest one is that little piece at the end, being at a different angle, but overall, I'd actually say that's pretty dang good. So, that, hey, tip. Maybe you learned something. I did. Gonna have to remember that. I probably won't, but, Alright, well, we got this installed. This one is not screwed in at the wheel cylinder side, like I said, and it's started in the distribution block. Obviously, this isn't connected either. There's still connections that need to be made, but let's see how it fits. I'm gonna find out when I do. Am I alright, or do I suck? A little finesse. That one starts. That one starts. So there we go. Awkward angle aside, brake lines are done. At least the fabrication. Clearly there's stuff dangling. They're not tight. But at the very least, I can cross off fabricate brake lines and change it to tighten brake lines. So that's not anything major, but it is something crossed off the list. And while I am definitely not Chip Foose, it doesn't look too terrible. I don't know about good, but it doesn't look terrible. Gonna leave these in here because the next thing that we're gonna be doing is tackling these rear brakes. Hopefully, I find out that they're not as terrible as the front whole everything was. But honestly, I'm not gonna hold my breath because you can see all the stuff that dripped down. I'm really hoping that's from a blown wheel cylinder. And not from a blown axle seal. Well, with that being said, let's get started on the rear brakes and find out if everything's not too bad or if we're opening a can of worms like we did on the front. Alright, so Adam is here today, which means I actually have help, which is great. And that also means that, like I said before, we're going to start on the back end of this and tearing into the brakes to see what other parts I need to buy. So that's what we're going to get to now. hopefully, wish us luck, and hopefully we don't find all sorts of other crap, because that's probably going to happen. Give me a sec.
Huh?
Oh, you got it?
I got it,
There's nothing on there. Ta-da! Done.
yeah. I was like, I'm thinking I'm missing something. Like,
And the brakes are done! World's fastest brake removal. There's nothing back here. And judging by the cobwebs, there hasn't been anything here for a while. Yeah. Just need to pull the wheel cylinder, because, yeah. Cool. Everything's fine, including the broken stud. Hey, remember that thing where I said we're gonna find out what parts I needed to buy? You want what parts I didn't buy? The freaking stud. Cool. All right, while Adam's working here, I'm gonna show you this. This is one of the little pins that goes in the whatever they call it, the push rods for the wheel cylinder. We moved this car probably 100 feet. We did not move it enough to completely grind down one of these pins, which means this thing's been driving on the road with no rear brakes. And it moved a lot. Like, that's not just a couple miles. That's a number of miles. That is wild. I've never seen anything like that. And now back to Adam working on the wheel cylinder.
I'm sure it hasn't returned on the road in a long while anyways. But when it was, watch out, 1980s, we had no rear brakes.
No.
We don't need those.
Burnout machine. So before we go any further, I just want to point out, that tire actually holds air. Don't ask me how. It does. Are all the studs there?
Yeah.
Oh.
We're studded up.
Not all the lug nuts are, but studs are all there.
Not all the plies on the tire up there either.
No, they're all there. They're just not all working.
Ew.
World's fastest brake removal.
That's rusty. Yeah.
The wheel cylinder's there because I was using it as a reference. This is insane. Are the little pins in there?
Nope.
Okay.
Neither one of them.
Okay, good thing I ordered more. Question is, did I order enough more? Definitely we're using the others.
And action. Well, we got the cylinder installed. 2 bolts. Pretty straightforward. You can also see the beautiful brake line that Grant was able to do. Again, very clean, very nice, very out of the way. So now what we're going to do is go ahead and we're going to pop this plug out. We're going to go ahead and install the actual brake line to the new cylinder. It's pretty straightforward. It's just a simple nut. You see, you got to build your confidence just for it to get destroyed. There we go. All right, hold on. Let me restart. All right. It's pretty straightforward. It's a single nut. Ferrule. You can actually hand tighten it.
Slide it.
Edit it out.
Flare nut.
I'll show you some flares on the nuts. Edit it out! It's a video of me yelling. Alright. Easy peasy. Now we can move on to the other side. Alright, so as you can see, we got new cylinder going in.
As Adam narrates his own time lapse.
We don't need time lapse on this. This is an educational video.
Alright, cool.
Okay, go. That's under here.
Yep.
A little bit of extra in there. Alrighty. And then we're done. Car's ready to go. Ready to roll. Might as well drop the jack stands, drop the jack, and get her on the road.
Well, I've been trying to put it off, but it's time. I'm going to start digging into this front suspension. Like I said, the bushings are bad in the control arms. I'm sure there's going to be something else I find. That's just kind of how it is. As you can see from the strap, things might be about to get sketchy for trying to get the springs out. So then I can pull the lower control arms. Before we get to that though, the first thing I need to do is pull this sway bar so that hopefully it makes it a little bit easier and there's one less thing with tension on the two different control arms. So I'm going to disconnect it from both sides and then we're going to start tackling my favorite thing, no, not at all, which is removing springs and, you know, hoping that they don't turn into rockets going across the room. So, that being said, time to get working on removing the sway bar. We now have the sway bar disconnected, which means it is time for everyone's favorite thing. No, that's not it. Something I've been looking forward to for a really long time. Well, that sure as hell ain't it. No, it's time to release the pressure off these springs. Yeah, no, this... Well, after 9 years and I don't know how much butchery, the cowsel nut's finally off. So now we get to proceed with the plan, which is to slowly lower the jack that is ratchet strapped to the frame and release the pressure on the spring, because you know what could possibly go wrong there. Alright, well, we're going to use some of the lessons we learned on the last side on this side, so hopefully it's not as much of a disaster. Only time will tell. Well, it's going great. No, really, it actually went way better than the other side. Alright, now that the compressor scared the crap out of me, let's finish lowering this, or try to. And ratchet strap out of the way. And ratchet strap out of the way. And ratchet strap out of the way. Well, where's the... I haven't seen that before. Interesting. There's that guy in there, which honestly looks to be like a coil spreader. I don't know if that was for load, because this side was starting to sag, or what exactly the deal was. Yeah, I've never actually... Shocking! No pun intended. Yet another thing where I can say I haven't seen that before. I don't actually know what that is meant to do. So, tilt the camera down and figure out what happens when we take it out. So it looks like some sort of a coil spring spacer. Freaking old, whatever it is, but yeah, I have absolutely no idea what that is. Have to do some research on that. I might be a little worse for wear, and have sweat through everything I have on somehow in the fall. And the driver's side ball joint might be a little worse for wear too. But ball joints are broken loose, only slight sketchiness and minor butchery. Might have been that one. Control arms are loose. We're going to start unbolting all those. See what we need to fix, because it looked like the driver's side one, where there was virtually no bushing left, has a crack. And so we'll fix that if we need to, pound out what's left of these bushings, and put the new ones in. I told you at the beginning of the episode, there's actually going to be new parts in here. I'm trying. This is, like debacle. It's going great. It snowballed so terribly. But we are going to try and get some stuff in. It'd be nice to wrap up the brakes. I got all the parts we need for the front brakes, so new bearings, new races, in addition to all the brake parts and springs. So those are going to be going on once we get this wrapped up. Got all the parts for the back already. So we are getting close to actually making progress. This is just going to take a little bit longer, so you might get a longer episode. But still going to keep my word. Still going to put more than just rear wheel cylinders on and get this all wrapped up. Well, I have no idea how these come off, but there's a nut on either side, so I'm assuming it's some combination of that. So, here goes. Service manual that told me how to do this. My desk, about 40 feet away. I guess it's like 60. control arm removed. Now it's time to get onto this one. Hopefully it goes as smooth, or ideally smoother, than the other one. But this is the next step, and then we're going to start rebuilding and repairing this one as necessary, if that actually is a problem. I'm hoping it's just the metal that was around the bushing, but it doesn't look like it, so I'm going to take it off, and if it is damaged, I'll show you all, and then we'll figure out how we're going to fix it. And before I take this off, that is actually the control arm moving. When I told you this was bad, I really wasn't kidding. Like, it's not good. I can see a little bit of bushing over here, so it's not entirely gone, but I'd say it's a solid, 95% pulled in Elvis and left the building. Alright, so this at least moves in the hole. That's better than that one. That one is kind of a pain. So that at least bodes fairly well for getting that out. And the answer to that question is no, it does not. So this one's stuck, the other one's stuck. We'll just preemptively start with some PB Blaster. Alright, wasn't too bad. Got this control arm off. Still got to get that pin out. I'm going to start soaking it with PB Blaster, and hopefully it doesn't fight us as much. What I meant to say is, while that's soaking, let's remove the sway bar that's being a giant pain in the ass and in the way. That seems like the smart thing to do, instead of constantly hitting it with everything. Well, it hasn't been for a while, but at one point that was a sway bar bushing. Didn't see that. Yeah, it's great shape. But at least the other side is in one piece. You know, if you count that as one piece, it's mostly broken in the middle. Yeah, that's the other one. Doing great. It was hanging in there. That was a trooper. Alright, that is the last suspension pin out. This guy right here. We pulled the sway bar because the bushings on it were bad anyways. So it needed to come out and it was just in the way. I got tired of it. So now that we have that done, we're going to start working on fixing the control arms, putting in new bushings, removing the old, all that good stuff. So, new parts. Progress. Can't you tell? There's so many new parts on this. Just ignore the stuff all over the ground. It was never there. We're actually going to be putting stuff back on the car. I know. I'm surprised too. I never thought this day was actually going to come. So we got the pins, whatever you want to call them, coated in anti-seize. We're going to grab the passenger control arm and we're going to get it bolted in, and hopefully it goes well. I don't know. This is the one that fought me putting the bushings in. It's also one that has the newer bushings instead of the old ones. I don't know what's causing that. Quality sucks. But got new bushings in it, so it's got to be better than the ones that were absolutely roached. So let's get it in. Well, as I put this in here, this is also the control arm that we put new nuts welded to the control arm for the shock mount. The old one, or well, there weren't any old ones. There's supposed to be nut plates on there, and those were gone. So don't know what happened to those, but there were just bolts and nuts, and one side had actually cracked. So we welded that up, welded a washer on either side for kind of reinforcement, and then welded a nut to the back side. So that way we are good to go for bolting in the shock, and we don't have to sit there and mess with trying to get a nut inside the coil spring. Alright, well, we're going to call that good for now. They're not tight all the way, but they are tight enough. So that way we'll still be able to move it without too much of an issue, as I get anti-seize absolutely everywhere. Well, as you could see in the last clip, we got the control arms in. Brand new bushings pushed in, brand new ball joints. Which, between that and the fact it's been several days since we've done anything sketchy with the jack, that means it's time to put it together and do something sketchy with the jack. So, we're going to put the springs, we've got brand new isolators in, and yeah, we're going to strap the jack to the frame again and try and get it put back together. Alright, well, we should probably say a prayer for that ratchet strap, because if this slides off, it is toast. But hopefully that is enough to actually get this jack to start jacking things up and going in the right direction. On side number 2, little bit of a pro tip. When you put these in, make sure you put the spring in the right way, so you don't have to do the driver's side twice. Because, yeah, I had to do it twice. Kind of sucks. So it's done now again. But hopefully I've got a little bit of a method down now, and this one will go way quicker. But we shall see, and I'll make sure to put this in the right way the first time. Done. I just got to bend those, and we are done. All right, well, now that we have the control arms in, we're actually going to do what we were originally working on before the front end just magically exploded and, parts fell off and I don't know what happened. It was crazy. Which is replace the shocks. Took them off. That's what started this whole ordeal, and it went south very quickly from there. So we're going to install the shocks and then get working on brakes. Shocks are in, so what started this whole ordeal are finally in, so we're good there. Next thing is the brakes, and then we'll put the front sway bar in, and we will be wrapped up with the front suspension modifications, upgrades, changes, fixes that we were going to do up here. Well, front brakes are done, and we were able to get new hardware on both sides as far as the springs and wheel cylinders and stuff are concerned. Drums are still getting resurfaced, so we're going to have to wait on those. And unfortunately, I'm going to have to wait on potentially parts for the rear brakes. Trying to figure out the parking cables. The ones I do have two. I did find both, but they seem to be a little bit rough. So I'm not sure if that's the best thing to use those, or whether to just, pony up and get new ones. So got to figure that out. So this is where we're going to stop for this episode. New front brake setup, new control arm bushings, new lower ball joints. We got new shocks in. We got the new rear wheel cylinders. So we did get actually a lot of new parts on, which is actually kind of exciting to see it start to come together instead of continually pulling parts off. But like I said, that's where we're going to end this episode. If you've made it this far, thanks for watching. And if you want to stay up to date on this project or keep following along, feel free to subscribe so you don't miss any other videos. And until then, I'll see y'all next time.